Poor bastards should normally be the first to greet us, my sister's fiancé's father exclaimed, his face red with anger. That day, we went to meet my sister's fiancé's family. We arrived at a fancy restaurant. But that family had made fun of us so much. I could have forgiven them for making fun of me. But it was a different situation if they made fun of my family. My precious sister and brother. I will never forgive anyone who hurts them. Well then, because of my decision, my sister's fiancé's family had to go through hell. My name is Charles Baker. One winter, my parents were involved in a car accident due to a slipping vehicle on an icy road. And they died. I was a senior in high school at the time. My younger brother Miles was 13, and my younger sister Natalie was 8. I have to take care of them both. I decided to give up on college and go to work as a high school graduate. Charles, I'll take care of the chores. I appreciate your help, Miles. We're family, right? We have to help each other. Miles quit club activities and supported us by doing housework. I'm going to help too. My sister Natalie, she also tried her best to do what she could. Life after the sudden loss of my parents was difficult. But thanks to the two of them, we were able to get by. But one day, Miles, what happened to your face? I had a fight at school.
Aha! Look what happened to your face, Miles.
Seeing Miles' swollen cheeks, Natalie was crying hard. Miles and I hurriedly comforted her as she burst into tears. While comforting Natalie, I asked Miles what happened. Miles said that his classmate made fun of him for not having parents. It seemed they got into a very big fight. Let's go apologize to his parents. But he was the one who teased me first. But it was you who made the first move. You should not use violence against people, although I understand how you feel. Miles seemed reluctant to do so, but he went with me to the kid's house to apologize. But the kid's parents said, "This is what happens when kids don't have parents." When I heard that, I was about to react too, but I held back and left the house. Someday, I'm going to prove them wrong. I want to be someone influential. On the way home, Miles sobbed with frustration. Yeah, you are right. You are smart. I'm sure you'll become a great person. I also stroked Miles's head, stifling my frustration. My words were not meant to comfort Miles. Miles was really smart. His grades were always at the top of the class. At this rate, I was sure he would be able to go to a good university. Natalie, well, I didn't think her grades were that good, but she had to at least finish high school so that she wouldn't be in trouble when she grew up. I had to do everything I could for the sake of my two younger siblings from this day forward. I decided to work harder than ever. 15 years passed.
Charles, I have someone I want to marry.
What? One morning, Natalie's startling announcement caused Miles to drop the bread he was going to eat. Congratulations. Can you introduce us to your boyfriend?
Of course.
Contrary to Miles' shock reaction, I was smiling. 15 years had passed, and I had been able to earn a decent amount of money. After attending university with a high deviation score, Miles had a stable job too. Natalie graduated from high school, and she got a job at a local company and was leading a peaceful life. However, at the time, we had no idea that Natalie's engagement would cause an unexpected upheaval. The meeting with Natalie's fiancé went without a hitch. Her fiancé, Leo Campbell, was a nice young man with a kind smile. I breathed a sigh of relief that Natalie had found a good partner. I'm sure he can take care of Natalie. Even though Miles looked kind of sad, he admitted that. I was confident that the marriage would go forward without a hitch. However, Natalie unexpectedly sought me for advice later that day.
I need to talk to you about Leo's family.
We had talked about having a dinner meeting with Leo's family, and we were about to make a reservation at a fancy restaurant. But according to Natalie's story, Leo's family had been bank employees for generations. Leo's father was an assistant manager of a certain branch, and his wife worked as a teller at another branch. Furthermore, Leo's grandfather was an amazing man who worked his way up to the position of general manager at the head office.
But
Natalie let out a loud sigh. Leo was not a banker. That was supposedly because he didn't want to work with his family. Leo's parents were very arrogant people. They looked down on and mocked others in lower positions than themselves. When Natalie went to their house alone to meet Leo's parents, upon realizing that she didn't have parents, they were very critical of her. Are you kidding me?
no, they treated me badly. I didn't really care what they said, but Leo got upset.
For some time, Leo had been wanting to cut ties with his family. He moved away when he started college and hadn't returned much since. He never contacted them until it was absolutely necessary. Leo had not even informed them that he was seeing Natalie until right before our meeting.
So Leo's not too excited about our family meeting either.
I see. I haven't met his family, so I don't really know what to say. As I was thinking about it with my arms crossed, Miles, who was listening to me, said, "Why don't we meet them anyway? Then we'll decide what to do." Yeah, you're right. That's a good idea. I nodded in reply to Miles' suggestion. Since long ago, people had been saying all kinds of things to us because we didn't have parents. We were used to this kind of thing. I made a reservation at a fancy restaurant as planned, and we decided to meet them there. However, on the day of the meeting, I had an emergency work that I had to take care of. I had to drop by my office before going to the restaurant. More than 30 minutes had already passed from the appointed time. When I arrived at the restaurant, I was out of breath. For some reason, Leo, Natalie, and Miles were standing outside the restaurant. "Sorry I'm late. Were you waiting for me?" "Well, yeah, but other than that..." Miles smiled bitterly. Natalie was standing nearby, supporting Leo, who had a very pale complexion. "It was more than what Natalie told me. Those guys are insane. Leo looked like he was going to collapse at any moment, so I took him outside." When Miles said "those guys," I knew he was referring to Leo's family. "Charles, you don't have to meet them. Let's just get out of here," Leo said in a weak voice. "I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable." "I appreciate it, Leo, but it's okay. I'll be fine. Besides, I have to say something to people who have hurt my future brother-in-law." "Charles." "Natalie, you stay here with Leo. Miles, will you come with me?" "Sure, let's go."
Okay, I'll wait here with Leo.
With Miles, I headed to the room where Leo's family members were waiting. I acted bravely in front of Leo, but I wondered what kind of people they were. Hesitating a little, I opened the door to the room. "I'm very sorry for being late. My name is Charles, Natalie's older brother." I immediately apologized. "It looks like Leo is not feeling well, so please excuse Natalie for being absent. Once again, I'm sorry for..." "You have some nerve, you know. Poor bastards should normally be the first to greet us." Even though I apologized to them, the abuse was directed at me by a man who appeared to be Leo's father. Raising my head, my eyes widened in surprise. That day, only Leo's parents were invited. I had made a reservation at the restaurant for the exact number of people. However, I was surprised to see who appeared to be Leo's grandparents there as well.
Is he the brother of the useless girl? Ha! He looks just like her. He has the face of an impoverished man.
Leo's grandfather looked at me and snickered. Next to him, Leo's grandmother giggled and laughed.
You're absolutely right. He has a filthy look on his face. This is to be expected from a family without parents.
Hearing my father-in-law cursing, I looked at Miles, who was standing next to me. Miles gave me an "I told you so" look. With all due respect, we are not poor. We all have decent jobs and...
Shut up! You're a loser. You shouldn't talk back to us. As a loser, all you got to do is crawl on the ground and apologize to us. We haven't forgiven you for being late. Don't look us in the eyes without my permission.
Then Mr. Campbell slammed the table. After that, Leo's mother, Mrs. Campbell, opened her mouth while glaring at us.
You were late, and you're being so arrogant with us. Your actions reveal your upbringing. That girl was also cocky towards us, but I suppose her brother is much more cocky.
Excuse me, what did you say?
I'm not against this marriage, but once they are married, I'm going to have them live at our house, and I will re-educate her. I will make that poor girl into a respectable woman worthy of my family. You should be thankful to me.
Leo's father nodded in agreement.
I know that miserable girl would turn a little bit better if I leave her to my wife. Do you want me to educate both of you too? I can't believe you bastards are going to be part of our family. I'm too embarrassed to tell the other relatives.
At those words, I finally ran out of patience. It was fine with me if they made fun of me, but I absolutely could not allow them to make fun of my precious family. Well, I will withdraw $100 million from my account next week. Be sure to greet me when I do that.
Huh?
Let's go, Miles. Leaving Leo's family in a daze at my words, I left the room with Miles. After paying the bill for our family at the reception desk, I called out to Natalie and Leo at the exit and went back to the house. They looked worried, but... Don't worry, I said to them, and I smiled to reassure them. The following week, I went to a certain place. I stepped into the building exactly on time for my appointment. Hello, Andrew. And hello to you, Mr. Campbell.
Mr. Baker, I apologize deeply for everything.
I walked into the branch of the bank where Leo's father worked, and the person who greeted me with an apology was Andrew, the branch manager and assistant manager of this bank, Mr. Campbell, Leo's father. I got in touch with Andrew, the manager of the bank where Mr. Campbell worked. Hi, Andrew. How are things going for you? I'm afraid I have to surprise you like this. I'd like to close my $100 million deposit account. Earlier, Andrew was in a panic on the other end of the phone and asked me what was going on. I explained in detail what had happened. Mr. Campbell was wrong. I was not a poor man. After graduating from high school, I worked hard at a company where I got a job, and I rose to a decent position despite my young age. One day, I attended a party accompanying my boss.
Charles, is that you?
The chairman of a company who saw my business card was surprised to see me. This chairman was, to my surprise, my grandfather. My father was the eldest son of a certain conglomerate. It was believed that he refused to marry the woman his family had chosen for him and fled with the woman who became my mother. The truth is that I had never heard of this until that moment. Neither my father nor my mother told us about their families. Even when my own grandfather explained it to me, I was skeptical.
But when he showed me a picture of my father when he was young, I finally understood.
I know it's too late for this, but will you let me make amends?
According to my grandfather, he regretted deeply that he had opposed their marriage. He invited us in as his own family, and he also promised to pay for Miles and Natalie's school fees. He also invited me to his company and begged me to let him train me to be the next CEO of the company.
For generations, a family member has served as CEO of our company. I have only known you for a short time, but you have the talent of a CEO. I can tell since I've led a large company myself.
I was skeptical, but he offered me a huge salary and benefits, and in the end, I agreed. As a trial, my grandfather gave me some real estate to inherit before his death. He wanted me to manage the real estate to increase the assets. I began to manage the properties by hand, learning the ins and outs of real estate from my grandfather. As a result, I now have $100 million in assets. It was a coincidence that I had an account at the bank where Leo's father worked. I never knew that things would turn out like this.
I'm very sorry. He will be punished accordingly. I hope you will reconsider the cancellation of your account.
I was led to another room where Andrew and Mr. Campbell apologized profusely. I gave them chilly stares. Mr. Campbell was acting differently from the other day. He was shaking and looked pale. Seeing this, I let out a big sigh. I'm afraid I can't do that. I have decided to transfer this money to another bank.
But please.
The other bank I was referring to was the one where Miles worked. After graduating from university, Miles got a job at one of the top mega banks in America. One day, Miles, who worked there, told me something.
I heard that this bank is in financial trouble. How did you know that?
I received this information from a certain source. We don't want to go down together. Please, go through the procedures as soon as possible. When I said so with a firm attitude, Andrew slumped his shoulders and began the procedure. By his side, Mr. Campbell had a different look of misery on his face than before. It appeared to be the first time he had heard that the bank was suffering financial difficulties. Seeing his face, I let out a small sigh. After that, my assets were safely transferred to Miles' bank. Once everything was settled, I organized a wedding ceremony for Leo and Natalie. The ceremony was simple, inviting only those close to the couple. Not a single member of Leo's family was invited, but Natalie and Leo were surrounded by their close friends. They were smiling with happiness. Leo became a member of our family and took the last name Baker. And a few years after the ceremony, Natalie got pregnant. According to the doctor's prediction, the baby would be a male. At this point, Leo's father sent Leo a message. He wanted help because he had been restructured due to the bank's financial issues.
I can't help you.
Leo just refused, blocking his father's phone number. We are now living the happiest days of our lives. My entire family is anxiously awaiting the birth of my nephew. Today, as usual, we live with smiles on our faces.
I had an unexpected interaction in the spring of my junior year of college that I still remember. During spring break, I had split up with my girlfriend and decided that I didn't want to be in a relationship for a time. I spent my days listening to my friends discuss their relationships and how they met girls. One of my pals started talking about a girl he met at a party and took home one day. She was really cute, so I asked her if she wanted to leave the party with me. She quickly accepted me. Man, it was so simple. Simple? I'd never taken a girl home before, so my friend's playboyishness surprised me. "So, are you going to date her?" I asked. He said, "No way, that's impossible. There's something weird about that girl. In the end, she turned me off, and I sent her home first thing in the morning." My friend said so while waving his hand in front of his face, and "It's such a waste for such a cute girl." He showed me a photo he took at a party. I was struck by a thrill I had never felt before as soon as I saw the photo. "She's so damn cute." Her skin was pure white and her hair was straight down to her chest. Her wide, round eyes were striking. There were other women in the photograph, but she was the only one that drew my attention. "Who is she?" My friend was taken aback when I pointed at her so rapidly. "That's the girl I was talking about," he told me. When I asked him to introduce me to her, "Seriously, that is not a good idea. Believe me, she's very weird." He initially refused, but after I insisted, he agreed. He gave me her WhatsApp contact. To be honest, I had never been this interested in ladies before, and I was astonished by myself. My friends were also quite surprised. "I don't care if you come to regret it later, okay?" I didn't care what my friend was saying, and I decided to text her right away. I hadn't given any thought to what my friend meant by weird. I imagined she was clinging and possessive, or that she was selfish and went through a lot of personality changes or anything along those lines. But I was so happy at the time that I thought it was cute. Olivia was her name, and despite the fact that I had texted her unexpectedly, she quickly responded. As we exchanged messages every day, we rapidly became friends. A week later, we had our first date. Olivia was even more beautiful than she appeared in the photo, small and quiet, and I became increasingly drawn to her. She was a little out of the ordinary in many ways, but I loved her that way too. We had only met once, yet my affection for her became stronger that day. "I fell in love with you at first sight, and I want you to go out with me." I told her how I felt about her, and we began dating. I was so head over heels in love with her that I thought I loved her more than any previous girlfriend I'd ever had. But as we got to know each other more, I saw what my friend meant when he labeled Olivia weird. I felt especially weird when I brought Olivia to an elegant restaurant for her birthday. "This is the first time anyone has taken me to such a lovely place." I thought it was cute at first to see her so delighted to be taken to such a nice place. But then she began to stand up, wander around, and scamper around, despite the fact that she was still eating. She also dropped her knife and fork from the table several times, as if she couldn't use them properly. To be honest, I felt a little embarrassed. But every time she did so, she would apologize with a sad look on her face. I could only pretend that I wasn't feeling strained and told her that everything was okay. But the same thing happened on a daily basis. I think I gradually began to feel uncomfortable meeting her. Olivia and I both lived alone, so she had made it a habit of staying over at my place every weekend. I refused to let her come to my house for the first time, using a college report I had to complete as an excuse. When I called her on Friday night to tell her about it, "Don't you like me anymore?" she was crying, but I was in no mood to comfort her. "I'm sorry, I'll see you next week." With that, I hang up. To be honest, I still had some time until I had to turn in my report, and I wasn't in a rush. But I was scared I'd become fierce and lash out at her if I saw her. So I wanted to be alone and cool off. When I opened my computer the next day in the afternoon to begin writing my report, I received a phone call from Olivia.
I apologize for yesterday. I guess I didn't consider your feelings, right?
She apologized, and I, feeling guilty for having turned her down for a false reason, immediately told her that it was okay. Then,
I want to help you because you were working hard to write your report. So, can I go cook dinner for you? I won't stay over, and I'll be gone soon.
she told me that. Olivia rarely cooked for me. I figured she wouldn't do anything embarrassing if we were in the house, so I agreed. Olivia arrived in the evening, holding 2 large plastic bags. She stood in the kitchen, dressed in an apron and bandana she brought with her. I'd always wanted to see Olivia cook, and it was wonderful to see her back in the kitchen. I forgot how irritated I had been and believed we would be able to get along again. But Olivia had injured her own hand with a kitchen knife, so I had to apply a adhesive bandage on her finger. And just when I thought we were back on track, she dropped a bowl of ground meat, eggs, and milk on the carpet. Moreover, the hamburger steak she had prepared was as black as charcoal. I told her I would still eat it, but she said she was picky about cooking and had to start from scratch. I listened to Olivia, who told me to stay seated, so I worked on my report quietly. I was impatient because, despite starting cooking before 5 p.m., she hadn't completed by 10. I told her I would take over cooking the hamburgers.
I'm sorry for being so useless.
With that, she began to cry. I was just thinking how cute she was at first, but I was becoming upset since she couldn't do anything. Don't worry, it's okay. But Olivia might have noticed how irritated I was. Even though I told Olivia that there was nothing else she could do, she kept asking me if there was anything else she could do. I asked her to vacuum the house because I assumed it would be so simple that there would be no room for error. I was still upset, but I wanted to smile and make up with her. So I prayed in my heart that she wouldn't do anything stupid. And just as I was going to serve the perfectly grilled hamburger steak, boom, crash, splat. A tremendous noise echoed from behind me, plainly audible over the sound of vacuuming. I looked behind me, surprised, and saw Olivia, who looked like she was going to cry, stepping on my acoustic guitar. Olivia was concentrating on vacuuming, and she didn't notice my guitar set up on the stand and accidentally knocked it over with her foot. Olivia was surprised as she heard the guitar crash to the ground. But the guitar was right where she had put her foot down, and she stepped on it. Olivia's foot ripped a hole in the guitar. The guitar cost $3,000, and I bought it as a freshman in college with money saved from my part-time job. It was a guitar that I had cherished for a long time. I couldn't handle it any longer, especially given my frustration. Come on! You said you wanted to be helpful, but you're not helping in any way. You're just bothering me. I don't want to see you anymore, so get out. Tears were spilling out of Olivia's big eyes, but I wasn't feeling sorry for her at the time.
I'm sorry.
Olivia was crying as she returned the guitar to its original location and fled out of the house. It was until a week later that I realized I said something hurtful to her. Because I didn't have to phone Olivia every day, I was able to finish my report on time. But I still felt a gaping hole in my chest. I thought about contacting Olivia and apologizing to her, but I didn't know how to deal with my irritation at Olivia's continual failures. So I was hesitating. 2 weeks had gone after my dispute with Olivia, and I received a phone call from her. However, the voice I heard on the other end of the phone was not her voice. It was a nurse from the city hospital on the phone. According to her, Olivia had been in a traffic accident and had been taken to the hospital by ambulance, and she wanted me to come. I dashed to the hospital, where an unbelievable scene awaited me. Olivia was lying on the bed with her head, arms, legs, and other visible areas of her body almost entirely bandaged. I couldn't even tell it was Olivia since she was tangled in so many tubes. Just looking at her, I started to cry. "No way! Is it really you, Olivia? You were so well." A nurse approached me as I stood at the hospital room's entrance and asked, "Are you her relative?" "No." When I replied, the nurse proceeded, possibly because she assumed I was her boyfriend. "You know that Olivia doesn't have a family. You were the only one in her contact list, so I had to contact you." "What?" I had no idea she didn't have any family. When we talked about her family before,
They live too far away, so I don't get to see them.
I trusted her word, and that nurse told me something I didn't know about Olivia. She informed me that when Olivia was a little child, she lost her parents and eldest sister in a car accident caused by an asleep driver who crashed into their car when she and her family were driving. Olivia was the only one who miraculously survived the disaster, but she was left with brain damage as a result of the catastrophe's after effects. Olivia's unusual behavior was due to this. She has been coming to this institution since she was a child for rehabilitation and medical exams. Because of what she said and did, she had a difficult time gaining friends. But Olivia had told her how much she adored her new boyfriend. Olivia had never once told me this. Despite the difficulties she was facing, she was doing her best. But I spoke horrible things to Olivia without considering her feelings, while I was stunned by the terrible act I had committed.
"Noah?"
I heard a very quiet voice. I ran up to Olivia's bedside.
"You came. Thank you. I'm so happy,"
she said while spilling tears down her face. "You don't have to thank me. I'm sorry I couldn't do anything for you." Olivia gently pressed her palm against my cheek.
"It's okay. It was my fault. I'm sorry about the guitar. I just wanted to make up with you."
She spoke weakly. I was frightened Olivia would leave me because of her fragile condition. "I don't care about the guitar. Olivia, what's wrong? Get well soon, okay?"
"Can I go to your place again?"
"Sure. Let's make hamburgers together, okay?"
"Thanks."
Olivia then closed her eyes and did not respond when I spoke to her. I called Olivia's name over and over again with tears streaming down my face. Then I heard a beeping sound from the machine connected to Olivia's body via a tube. Doctors and nurses rushed into the hospital room. Olivia! Olivia! And I was kicked out of the hospital room by the nurse. And 5 years later,
Noah, wake up!
when I woke up to that voice, Olivia was there. Olivia survived because of the hospital's meticulous nursing care. Miraculously, she recovered enough to lead a normal life. Last year, we got married. Even now, when I wake up every day, I am so happy that Olivia is next to me. That day, Olivia saw something, and she was hit by a car because she failed to see the traffic signal and crossed the street while it was red. She spotted an acoustic guitar that looked exactly like mine. I told her many times, "You can repair a guitar, or you can buy the same one again, but I can't do the same for you. If I lose you, I'll never be able to get you back. Please take care of yourself for my sake." Olivia nodded her head with a pleasant, pretty look when I told her that. That's what I keep saying to myself. Olivia still acts unpredictably from time to time, but that is manageable if I support her. I guess her body and brain have learned to cook because we've cooked so frequently recently. Olivia is now able to make hamburgers by herself. I'll be happy if we can continue to grow together, little by little. My name is Sylvia. My daughter, Angela, is disabled and has been in a wheelchair for a long time now. When she was born, I kept blaming myself for not having given birth to a normal baby, and I cried every day. However, everyone in my family supported me. In particular, my daughter does not suffer from her disability and is cheerful most of the time. I'm always encouraged by her smile. My daughter is paralyzed, but through hard work, she is able to hold a pencil and write. When she went to elementary school, she was able to enter the same public school as other normal children. Because she is using a wheelchair, my daughter isn't able to participate in PE classes. Her friends and teacher always helps her to move around the school whenever it was necessary. I was relieved to see my daughter enjoying her school life. But at the same time, I was always worried that she might be a burden to the other children around her. However, despite my worries, my daughter's friends and their families warmly accepted her. When my daughter went to the same junior high school as her friends, she wanted to do things on her own. She wanted to have more frequent rehabilitation. So she researched rehabilitation facilities within easy commuting distance from my house and asked me to help her. I decided to take my daughter to the hospital after school and on weekends. We took the bus to get there, but the return ride was within the busy hour, so we were feeling a little bit cramped. Since we took the bus from the first stop, we gradually became acquainted with the bus driver. He was an experienced-looking driver in his late 50s who always spoke to us kindly. He is a very pleasant man who smiles and talks to my daughter when he fixes her wheelchair. Although the bus was always crowded with businessmen and elderly women on their way home, they did not look at me with displeasure when I occupied their seats with my daughter's wheelchair. However, one rainy evening, the schedule was disrupted that day, and the driver was different from usual. Passengers with umbrellas jostled each other, and the bus was even more crowded than usual. I was beginning to regret taking such a packed bus with my daughter in a wheelchair. It was a different crowd than usual, and there were clearly many eyes looking at us if we were blocking their way. The young couple looked at us. "You're taking up so much space. You shouldn't ride on the bus during a day like this." I could clearly hear them saying that. I looked into my daughter's face and saw the apologetic, frustrated look on her face, and I felt sorry for her. I thought that I'll just hold out until the next stop and get off the bus there. I looked outside and saw an elderly woman pushing her husband in a wheelchair. This bus has 2 wheelchair spaces. I thought that although the bus was crowded, it was not impossible to get on, but the passengers around me were different. "No more place available for you. It's crowded and we already have 1 wheelchair inside this bus." An older man nearby said loudly to the driver. I looked at my daughter. She was frowning. The wheelchair couple waiting at the bus stop had probably missed several buses. The woman pushing the wheelchair had her hands soaked from the rain. I thought to myself that I'm going to get off here anyway, so I'd rather have the couple on the bus. As I was thinking about that, the young driver said to me, "Ma'am, please get off here." I was very sad. But since everyone around me was staring at me and my daughter, I obeyed the driver's word with tears in my eyes. The passengers around us tried not to make eye contact with us. The young couple I mentioned earlier were grinning at us. I was concerned about how my daughter feels, but all I could think was to get off this bus as soon as possible. "The next bus will be here soon. Please take that one," the driver said and pulled out a ramp to help my daughter getting off the bus. At the small stop where we dropped off, the 2 wheelchair-bound families were feeling the same way, both pitiful and frustrated. The old man in the wheelchair stared blankly at the sky. I smiled at the woman pushing the wheelchair, and she smiled back to me and my daughter. "This doesn't happen all the time, so don't worry about it," the caregiver encouraged us kindly. A little later, a bus arrived, but we were disappointed to see that it was marked as out-of-service bus. Then the bus stopped in front of us. I looked at the bus in wonder, and there was the driver, who is always so kind to us. The driver opened the door and looked at us and the elderly couple.
"It's raining terribly today, isn't it? I'm sorry you had a bad experience a while ago. I'll get the ramp out now, so please wait a moment."
After saying this, the driver opened the door for getting off and started preparing to get the wheelchairs in. I was so surprised that I couldn't help but think, "Excuse me, but the bus you're driving says out of service." The driver laughed and nodded.
"That's right, it's out of service. I'm going back to the bus depot now, but the bus stop where you will get off is just before the bus depot, so please let me take all of you there. I've already got the company's approval for that."
After saying that, the driver quickly fixed the wheelchair. I was moved to tears by the driver's kindness. I was told later that the young driver who had just arrived had been contacting his company about the situation after he left us at the bus stop. The usual driver, who just returned to the bus depot, offered to take care of us. The company agreed to do this in order to avoid any trouble with the irritated passengers inside the crowded bus. Both the elderly couple and we were just grateful for the thoughtfulness of the bus company. Then the driver told me,
Actually, my son has always been in a wheelchair, so I know how you feel about your daughter. Mothers who take care of their children are the priority while their fathers are at work, and it really is a hard work. I can't think of a better person than my wife. Both you and your daughter are really doing great. Unfortunately, some people are heartless, but I believe that there are few and far between. So please continue to go to rehab with your daughter. I will be supporting you.
I was so happy that there are such kind-hearted people in the world. My daughter, who was listening to me, seemed to have returned to her usual cheerful face from the gloomy expression she had earlier. When we arrived at the bus stop a little later, the old couple got off first. At the next stop, we thanked the driver and got off the bus. All the way home, I was moved by the kindness of the driver. When we arrived home, my daughter took off her raincoat slowly on her own.
I'm sorry that I made you feel bad, Mom.
I had not expected my daughter to say such a thing. No, it's not your fault, honey. I was the one who should be blamed. I hugged my daughter, and the feelings I had been holding back for so long exploded. Angela hugged me tightly.
Even so, I want to be able to walk by myself. I believe what the driver has told us, so I won't give up, and I hope to do my best. Will you support me, Mom?
I felt my daughter's strong feelings pushing me forward. It is no one's fault that my daughter has disability, and there is no reason to give up because of it. We shouldn't have to worry about the eyes of people who don't have a heart. The woman pushing the wheelchair was right. I don't care about those heartless people thinking about me and Angela. Thanks to the good people I met today and to the words of my precious daughter, my mind was somewhat clear. I got myself together, cleaned up my daughter's wheelchair, and went into the kitchen to start preparing dinner. Encouraged by my daughter, I was somewhat looking forward to the hospital visit tomorrow. When I told my husband what had happened today when he got home from work, he suggested us to thank the bus company for what they did. My daughter said she would write a letter of thanks. She began to write slowly and diligently on her favorite letterhead. My daughter has weak muscles, and it takes her longer time than others just to write some short sentences. She records all her school lessons and listens to them at home to review what she didn't get done in time. That day, my daughter spent 2 hours writing a short but heartful letter of thanks. The next day, after school, I went to rehab with my daughter. She was even more determined than usual, taking her hands off the railing before she started to move one step forward. It was a precious first step for her. I was proud of her effort. On the way home that day, when we went to the bus stop, the bus with the usual driver was already waiting. As soon as he saw my daughter's face, he immediately pulled out a ramp and gently guided her wheelchair into the car. My daughter quickly handed the driver a letter of thanks before the other passengers arrived. The driver looked surprised and squatted down to my daughter's eye level.
Thank you very much. I will read it with care.
With that, he gently tucked the letter into his pocket. My daughter whispered to me,
I feel nervous somehow.
She said mischievously. How was the story? The girl in a wheelchair and her mother always took the bus while feeling ashamed of their circumstances. After the humiliating experience, because of what the kind-hearted bus driver said to them, the mother and child became more confident, and they have gained the courage to continue their rehabilitation cheerfully. I wish the world were full of kind-hearted people, just like the bus driver.